Back at its heyday, the MCU was the biggest movie franchise of all time, and yet it has never been a full adaptation of the Marvel Universe. Marvel sold its film rights to its biggest characters and made a cinematic universe out of what was left. DC, on the other hand, has always had its cinematic rights, but failed at building a cinematic universe. What if that was because of the lack of limitations? What if DC was in the same situation? They sold the rights to their biggest characters, and then because of that, made a highly successful cinematic universe out of what was left? Well, that's what I'll be detailing in this video. Make sure to subscribe and become a member of this channel in the noble tier or above for early access to these videos. To kick things off, we have to determine which characters and franchises would be sold off by DC, and it's actually not a simple answer. Over at Marvel, it's a little bit more simple. The world could be split into 4 separate corners. Marvel sold 3 of them, with a few exceptions here and there, and kept the remaining. With DC, however, the world is a lot more laser focused on the Justice League. DC's most popular characters are founding and essential members of the League. The next biggest teams consist of the Justice League sidekicks, previous mantle holders, or associated characters, and much of the Justice League's rogues gallery are actually villains of other heroes. Basically, while the Justice League is the counterpart to the Avengers, and that one is clear, there aren't really any clear counterparts to the rest because you can't separate those other teams from the Justice League without it feeling a bit incomplete, like you could do with the Fantastic Four, the X-Men, and Spider-Man from the Avengers. On a character level, it's obvious that Spider-Man's counterpart would be Batman, the most recurring characters in their respective universes. That said, Batman could just as easily be the counterpart to the X-Men on a group level, since while the X-Men are Marvel's most recurring group, over at DC, that honor goes to the Bat family. That way, the counterpart to mutants in this world could be Bat family members. However, there are a lot more mutants in the Marvel universe than there are Bat family members in the DC universe, so let's fill that in with another franchise. The equivalent to the X-Men in this world would be both Batman and Wonder Woman. As per Spider-Man, that leaves Superman as the next obvious equivalent, and I do think that works a little bit better than Batman, if anything. This is all important because while the X-Men's equivalents would be missing the entire saga, the Spider-Man equivalent will be joining, albeit late. So sadly, this cinematic universe won't have Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, but don't fret. You could chat with them and 20 million more characters on Polybuzz, an AI chatbot app used by 40 million people worldwide, where you can interact with all your favorite characters and many real-life people to your heart's content. Look at me messaging Superman, check me out ruining Batman's day. Alright, I'll be kind to the Flash, but not you though, guy, you do not deserve it. Let's ask these guys some moral dilemmas, let's ask them about their day. I don't know, you could ask them about anything.
Well, that's quite the philosophical question. I'd say no.
I'll be honest, I was skeptical at first, but it's actually a lot of fun talking to these AI chatbot versions of these characters. And you, lucky listener, can get a free 3-day trial for ad-free Polybuzz Premium by downloading the app through my link in the description or the pinned comment, and then using the promo code LION77 in the Polybuzz search bar. And I'm sure there's plenty of characters that you would have fun talking to who I didn't mention. Again, there's 20 million of them. Thank you so much to Polybuzz for sponsoring this video. Try it, it's a lot of fun. As for the Fantastic Four, they are Marvel's 3rd most recurring superhero team. DC's equivalent to this is the Teen Titans. Like I previously mentioned, the Titans are quite tied to the Justice League, especially in its founding, but also I think it'd make a lot of sense if Fox and DC shared certain rights. Fox could use the likes of Wally West, Roy Harper, and Garth. They just can't call them by the names associated with their mentors, nor can they have mentors by those names. Sony and DC would similarly co-own Darkseid, as while he is the Superman villain, he is also a Justice League villain and a New God, which Sony would not have the rights to. Alright, so DC sold the rights to Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, the Teen Titans, and maybe a few others that aren't really worth mentioning. What would they build with what's left? Well, I like the idea that this saga would use the lack of certain characters as its focal point. DC has a long history of universes and timelines breaking apart, rebooting, merging, etc. This entire saga will then focus on a version of the DC universe that's been broken by a malevolent force who removed certain heroes from the timeline into their own timelines to make room for his victory. That's something like how they did with Thanos and the Infinity Stones that they'd come up with along the way. To start, their goal would simply be to bring the Justice League together as naturally as possible. The saga will be sticking exactly to the release schedule of the MCU, since this is supposed to be a DC Universe version of that. Releasing in 2008, Green Lantern would kick off the universe by introducing us to the character of Hal Jordan. Jordan. Hal is played by Chris Pine, a missed opportunity casting from the DCU and now the DCU that I think would have been perfect for both. Otherwise, this definitely would be a more out there entry point for the universe than Iron Man, getting into the cosmic side of things right off the bat, but it'll be more like the level of Thor rather than Guardians of the Galaxy. The plot is similar to the 2011 movie, but with less lore dumps, no parallax, Sinestro not turning evil yet, and the Oa section taking up just as much as Iron Man's time in Afghanistan did, after which we return to Earth and remain there throughout, while Hal deals with becoming a public hero and facing off against Hector Hammond. Generally also, the Green Lantern suit and powers look a lot more aesthetically pleasing. We also meet a recurring character here who will become prominent, John Diggle, who investigates the extraterrestrial threat on behalf of the DEO, otherwise known as the Department of Extranormal Operations. Hal defeats Hector and cements his role as the Green Lantern of Sector 2814, while he and Carol start dating, minimizing the role of secret identities going forward. The world finds out that Hal Jordan is the Green Lantern. The end credit scene shows that Hal is approached by the DEO director Amanda Waller, who teases a world of superheroes, suggesting that Hal was not the first. The first of the modern day heroes in this world would be revealed to be Green Arrow, who I've chosen as the equivalent to the Hulk. What this means is that the rights to Green Arrow were also purchased, this time by Universal Studios, who made a movie in 2003 called Arrow, showcasing Oliver's origin story. In 2008, just 1 month after the release of Green Lantern, they would release a collaborative effort with DC to release a sort of sequel, mostly reboot Green Arrow movie. This movie would be called Green Arrow, stars Justin Hartley as Oliver Queen, and basically continues from the previous, even if the previous is then not considered canon. Here, Oliver has been Green Arrow for around a year when he meets both his greatest ally and his greatest enemy. Merlin is simply an archer trying to prove he's the best, while Black Canary is a new superpowered vigilante in Star City, who Oliver falls in love with. She is played by Katie Cassidy. Black Canary is the daughter of the previous Black Canary, played by Juliana Harkavy, who we see training her as a child in flashback. She inherited her powers from her mother, who got them in an accident. Oliver and Dinah get together and defeat Merlin. Connecting this movie to the DCU, Hal Jordan will cameo in the end, showing to have heard about this movie's events. Going forward, the Green Arrow rights would be complicated. DC could use the character as much as they want, they just can't make a Green Arrow movie without Universal's approval, and Universal will never give them approval. Taking 2009 off, Green Lantern would then release in 2010, doing a lot more service towards building the DCU than telling a cohesive and concise narrative. In this movie, Hal is tasked with investigating the conspiracy of the Manhunters having infiltrated Earth in an attempt to take over. Meanwhile, Sinestro will be revealed to have abused his power to bring about a regime on his planet where he is the ruler. Seeking more power, Sinestro is swayed by the cosmic force known as Parallax, who shows him a vision of the future where Hal betrays him and turns him into the Guardians. We will later learn that this is not the future, but an alternate timeline, or maybe even the original timeline before it was altered. Meanwhile, Waller and Diggle, continuing to investigate extraterrestrials, locate a man known as John Jones, who has been masquerading as a police detective for some time. John is the last survivor of Mars, a planet that had dealt with and expelled the Manhunters in the past, but they all died to some other threat that will be revealed in another movie. Hal's investigation leads him to butting heads with the DEO as he gets more and more frustrated. Believing any of them could be Manhunters, Hal disregards any orders or laws and incurs the wrath of the US government, leading to a showdown that ends with one soldier standing, a character named John Stewart, played by Aldous Hodge. Feeling its call, John manages to pull Hal's ring in for himself. For some reason, Hal fails to take it back, his willpower failing him, and must now live with the fact that he is no longer a Green Lantern. John Stewart then teams up with John Jones to get rid of the Manhunters, only to find out that there are only one or two. Sinestro is given a new yellow ring by Parallax and heads for Earth. He attacks the defenseless Hal, who is then defended by John, while Jean faces the remaining Manhunter. Hal steals Sinestro's old green ring and regains his powers. The Lanterns team up against Sinestro, who is powered up by Parallax. It's a fair fight, until Parallax decides to abandon Sinestro. His job, which will be revealed later, is complete. Hal takes Sinestro to the Guardians, who send him to a prison in an alternate dimension called Quard. There, he is met by a group known as the Thunderers, who take great interest in his ring. John leaves to train on Oa, while Jean suggests to Hal that they form a team. An end credit scene shows Diggle investigating a mysterious weapon that washed ashore in Amnesty Bay, a trident. And then 2011 will complete the set of 3 that will go on to become known as DC's Big 3, not to be confused with the Trinity, who they do not have the rights to. Aquaman stars Alan Ritchson as a version of the character that is very different from his DCEU portrayal, since this predates the New 52. In the post-crisis pre-New 52 origin, Aquaman grew up in the ocean. This makes him more alien, fitting the Big 3 dynamic better as a counterpart to Thor and also Wonder Woman. Years ago, Atlanta, the Queen of Atlantis, was unable to conceive with her husband the King. Fearing death, she traveled to the surface world and got impregnated by a lighthouse keeper. Atlanta received a vision that this would lead to 2 sons whose battle for the throne will be the end of Atlantis. The first son, Arthur, is born right before the king Orvax brings home his own bastard son, Orm. Neither parentage is revealed to the public, who believe them to be twins. Cut to the present, and Arthur is the beloved prince said to be born first, next in line to become the king of Atlantis. Jealous of his brother, Orm spent years trying to take him down a peg, only to finally find out about his true parentage. Seizing power, Orm orchestrates his father's murder and unveils his mother's adultery to Atlantis. Atlanta is imprisoned, and Arthur is banished to live with his father in Amnesty Bay in violent fashion, being separated from his signature trident. Orm then becomes king and marries Arthur's intended, Mera. Waking up in Amnesty Bay, Arthur meets his father and learns to live among the humans, slowly becoming the perfect ambassador between the surface and ocean worlds. Orm proves to be a ruthless king and ambitious conqueror. He decides to declare war with the surface. As Arthur slowly becomes more and more known, the DEO picks up on his story and captures him. He then manages to retrieve his weapon from the DEO and escape. Arthur is then approached by an old friend and spy named Volko, begging for his help. He tells Arthur from Atlanta about Orm's true parentage. Arthur regains his strength and returns to Atlantis to reclaim his throne. After revealing Orm's origin, he challenges Orm and wins, becoming king of Atlantis. Orm is imprisoned and Arthur marries Mera, but to honor the rule of law in Atlantis, Atlanta is not bestowed her freedom. In this movie, Aquaman strictly does not have the ability to talk to fish, or at the very least, we don't see it. The writers thought it would be a bit too silly and general audiences wouldn't accept it, at least for now. Later that year, The Flash: Criminal Justice is the final movie before Justice League, strategically titled with the word justice to tie into and tease the movie. This movie montages through Barry's upbringing, starting with the murder of his mother and his father's imprisonment. He's taken in by his father's old friend and the police captain of Central City, Daryl Fry. Barry then isolates himself socially while hell-bent on becoming a forensic scientist to figure out what happened. Due to his genius and determination, Barry becomes one of the youngest forensic scientists in history. And then, 1 week into his job, he's hit by a bolt of lightning. Barry quickly learns his powers and embraces them to become the Flash. He spends the next year fighting the rogues, meeting Iris, and experiencing true happiness for the first time since his mother's murder. In fact, he loves being the Flash so much and is so beloved by the city that he begins to heal a little. Think of this as the Silver Age Barry Allen until the 1-year anniversary of his debut, titled Flash Day by the city, and everything changes when Barry is attacked by another speedster. This speedster, dressed in yellow, knows Barry's name, taunts him with knowledge of his past, and easily outspeeds him. Barry then has some push-down memories resurface. Remembering his mother's murder, there was a ball of lightning identical to this Reverse Flash. Reverse Flash kidnaps Iris and Daryl Fry and threatens to kill them, before revealing that he is Eobard Thawne, a speedster from the future and Barry's greatest enemy. Barry, putting 2 and 2 together, finally realizes that Thawne is a time traveler and the man responsible for his mother's murder. Thawne lost his powers because if Barry Allen never becomes the Flash, the Speed Force is never generated, and Eobard Thawne never becomes the Reverse Flash. So he made a device that made the lightning bolt that hit Barry and then pushed him enough by creating high-tech anti-speedster weapons he gave to common criminals, so that he would generate enough Speed Force to allow Thawne to regain his abilities. When he finally did, it was already a year into the Flash's career. Barry and Thawne fight, and their clashes push them through the time stream where Thawne plans on killing Barry, turning himself into a living paradox. Barry lands in the 25th century without Thawne. He meets the Flash of that time, they team up, but Barry learns of his crime manufacturing and turns him in. Thawne then falls through as well, and they resume their fight right back into the time stream. And while the camera stays in the 25th century, we learn that that other Flash was Eobard Thawne. We just witnessed his origin story and his reasoning for hating Barry. The fight continues until Thawne openly mocks Barry for killing his mother. Barry then pushes himself with the thought of saving his father in mind and overwhelms Thawne. Thawne is imprisoned, and it's revealed that Barry's suit has a recording device. Using Thawne's confession, Henry Allen is finally let go. This meant revealing his identity to the judge and jury, but because of of how beloved the Flash is, they agree to keep his secret. The end credit scene shows Barry returning home to be found by J'onn J'onzz, who has come to recruit him for a team. Around this time, DC releases a few short films known as DC one-shots. The first of them is titled The Candidates. John Diggle interacts with Amanda Waller to talk about vigilantes that could possibly recruit to a team the DEO is building. They agree Hal and John are off the table, but they discuss Flash, Arrow, and Canary, and John Diggle is officially sent to recruit all three. Then, just a month later, another John Diggle focused one-shot would be released, titled A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to Aquaman's Trident. Depicting a skirmish at a convenience store that Diggle gets into while heading to Amnesty Bay, this more than anything acts as a proof of concept for a spin-off show starring Diggle that DC wants to produce. And finally, for Phase 1, Justice League in 2012 brings together the heroes of the DC universe. The idea for the team originates from J'onn J'onzz, who first tried to recruit Hal Jordan unsuccessfully, then Barry Allen, who joined eagerly. Meanwhile, the DEO has been monitoring metahumans and has established ties with almost all of them, including Green Arrow and Black Canary, who, while not DEO members, are closely associated with them now, and are played by new actors, who reflect the recasting of War Machine and the Hulk. They are now played by Stephen Amell and Katie Lotz. The villain is Despero, a powerful psychic conqueror and a classic Justice League enemy. John's urgency to form a team stems from his past. Despero invaded Mars with his army of Dominators, wiping out John's pacifist race. Despero, once ruler of Kalanor, lost a battle against the Green Lantern Corps and then went into hiding. Genetically engineering the Dominators, he slowly built his strength back up. After he exterminated the Martians who refused to fight back, he was defeated yet again by the Green Lantern Corps. He disappeared until now. He distracts the Corps by attacking Oa with his Dominator army while he heads to Earth for a new challenge. Despero begins his assault in Coast City, attacking Hal at Ferris Air and injuring Carol Ferris, all with the attempt of killing the Green Lantern before he can alert the Corps. Hal, desperate, does call for the Corps' help, but John says that the Corps are busy. Hal finally understands the merit of Jean's vision. He contacts him. Half a minute later, the Flash shows up, extracting Hal, leaving him enraged. Hal attacks Barry. Their battle causes property damage, alerting the DEO, who dispatch Green Arrow and Black Canary. Jean finally arrives and purges Despero's influence that it's revealed was entered into Hal's mind, which caused his anger. The five heroes assemble at DEO headquarters to begin to strategize. Having failed to stop the alerting of the Green Lantern Corps, Despero knows the Corps will soon arrive. He then targets Atlantis to seize an item called the Warlagog, a cosmic artifact. There, he briefly mind controls Aquaman into granting access to Atlantis' vaults. Mera resists, gets attacked by Arthur, which snaps him out of it. He and Despero fight, but Despero wins and uses the Warlagog, which he gets out of the vault, to open a portal to Earth's nexus of power, Washington, DC. At the White House, Despero faces the DEO and the heroes. He manipulates John's fears to send him fleeing, and then mind controls everyone else. Aquaman arrives just in time to sucker punch Despero, opening a small window that allows the heroes to not get mind controlled. Canary uses her cry, Green Arrow fires arrows, Hal blasts him, while Aquaman and the Flash manage to hit him over and over again. However, Despero starts regaining control and gaining ground, shrugging off their attacks and reasserting dominance. Just as the tide turns, Barry receives a Speed Force vision showing the inevitable loss of this particular battle. Realizing they're completely outmatched, Barry makes the call to evacuate the team. Despero proceeds unopposed, taking full control of the US president and gaining access to the nation's most advanced technology. The team regroups in hiding. Jean is missing, consumed by fear, but Barry finds him. Hal then delivers a speech about facing fear, reigniting Jean's resolve. Jean creates mental shields around the team as they prepare for one last stand. Despero combines the Warlagog with the advanced tech to create a portal above DC to summon his Dominator Army B team, the ones that are not attacking the Green Lantern Corps. Hal asks for an update from the Green Lantern Corps, but they are still busy fighting the Dominator Army. And so the heroes are alone as the final battle begins. Shielded from mind control, the heroes attack. Hal positions Oliver and Dinah on rooftops for range support, while he and John attack from the sky. Barry and Arthur confront Despero directly. At one point, John is struck, weakening their shield, so Despero seizes the chance to pull Barry and Arthur into a psychic illusion, but both break free using their powers. Meanwhile, at the DEO, Waller authorizes a nuclear strike on Washington, D.C. John Diggle tries to stop her, but she shoots him, but not before he is able to warn the Justice League. After getting a warning from his ring that he's running out of power, Hal is forced to not power up and instead intercept the nuke midair and fly it right into the wormhole, destroying Despero's home base. However, he for some reason just doesn't return. It'll be revealed that he ran out of power while in space. Flash then destroys the wormhole device, cutting off reinforcements. With Despero weakened, the team unites for one final assault. John defeats Despero in a psychic showdown, leaving him brain dead by using the power of all the dead Martians, and a forbidden attack. The battle is won, but at a cost. Believing Hal died saving them, the heroes mourn his sacrifice and decide to form a group in his honor. It'll be revealed that Hal Jordan, while running out of power, used his final command to call in the Green Lantern Corps. However, he ran out of power in the middle of space. He, for all intents and purposes, should be dead. As we see him floating through space, his eyes begin to glow yellow before that turns to green as he is saved by a fellow Green Lantern member. Days later, Hal returns to Earth unsure of how he survived. He discovers that the team has been formalized, funded by Oliver Queen, and backed by a treaty between Atlantis and the US government. The DEO was shut down. Its DCHQ, which was damaged during the battle, was sold to Oliver Queen and is now the base of operations for the Justice League, known as the Hall of Justice. Hal joins the team officially and is unanimously voted as their leader. Justice League technically is not the final entry in this first phase, as later that year another one-shot would be released. Item 47 depicts a down-on-their-luck couple who finds a discarded Dominator gun which they use to rob banks. This attracts the attention of the newly formed organization named Argus, which has effectively replaced the DEO. They confiscate the item but hire the couple on for jobs. This is also meant to set up the Diggle show, but these characters will, for whatever reason, never be seen again. And just like that, that is the end of Phase 1. 6 movies and 3 one-shots, all leading into Justice League. Make sure to stay tuned for parts 2 and 3 coming out in the next month or two.